CNN Money reporting Amazon didn't kill Toys R Us. Here's what did. It's true online shopping didn't help matters, but the struggles of Toys R Us predate the boom in online shopping. Many of its wounds were self-inflicted. The company's biggest problem, it was saddled with billions of dollars in debt. That debt stopped it from making the necessary investment in stores, and that meant an unpleasant shopping experience that doomed the chain. The company told employees Wednesday that it would close or sell its U.S. stores after 70 years in business. If you're going to have that breadth of inventory, you need someone in the store to help you find it, help you experience it, said Greg Portell, lead partner at retail consultant A.T. Kearney. It's hard to sell toys in a cold warehouse environment. Toys R Us debt problems date back to well before Amazon was a major threat. Its debt was downgraded to junk bond status in January of 2005 at a time when Amazon sales were just 4% of their current level. Much of the chain's resources were devoted to paying off that massive debt load rather than staying competitive. Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy in September 2017. It disclosed it had about $5 billion in debt and was spending about $400 million a year just to service that debt. iHeartRadio also filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy last week on $20 billion in debt. A bunch of their radio stations carry this show. We're glad that they're on the air, and we're glad to be on the air with them, but it's the same exact situation. The debt, there's nothing wrong with iHeartRadio. The operations are clean. The app works. They're the largest owner of radio stations in America. They do a good job. They're good operators. They're not incompetent. We work with them all the time. No problems, really, other than $20 billion in debt. And it's just hard to operate under that kind of yoke around your neck. Because, see, here's what it does. Like, here's what happened with Toys R Us, okay? Toys R Us started to realize that they needed to have an online presence and become a click and mortar. Papa Dave, that would be me, actually bought grandkid stuff on Toys R Us website. But their website was clunky. It was high friction, very hard to operate, very hard to navigate through. And, you know, given clunky, most people are going to click old Prime over at Amazon, right? You don't want to do clunky. You want to do quick, easy, checkout, right? Boom, I'm out of here. And the problem is that same stinking toy just about every time is over there on Amazon. So you're not just competing on toys, you're competing on the way your website operates. The marketplace moved, and if you don't move with the marketplace, you get taken out. And so because they were so saddled in debt, they could not do the investments in their website infrastructure that they needed to, in the robustness of their website, the elegance of their website, the ease of use for their website. If they had poured $400 million a year into their website because they didn't have debt, $5 billion in debt they had to give that money to, they'd still be here. Because the problem wasn't that they didn't have a good selection. The problem wasn't that they were bad people. We've got a Toys R Us right about a quarter of a mile from this office where I'm sitting right now, and I have shopped in there since our children were little. It's iconic. It's a shame that chain is gone. I mean, it was a wonderful. I had, our kids had friends that worked in there in high school. We've bought kids stuff there, grandkids stuff there, birthday party stuff there. Some of the first Ramsey kid shopping experiences were in that particular store just down the street here. What killed them? It was that they could not respond to the disruption in the market. The disruption in the market being something like Amazon, and the fact that people are now doing more and more online ordering, and their online ordering sucked. They could not respond. They knew they needed to. I think they do. And I didn't have any discussions with their leadership team, but I think they knew they needed to. They didn't have any money. If they had poured $400 million into their infrastructure on their website, I think they'd still be here. Because I think they were an iconic brand. And here's what's interesting. when they were rising, when they were coming up, you know what people in small towns were saying? I don't see, if you're not old, you don't know this, but when old people like me, I remember we used to have independent toy stores in virtually every town. Just like you had an independent hardware store before Home Depot and Lowe's in virtually every town. And oftentimes you had, little independent clothing stores that, Walmart has come in and taken out. So what's happened is those little independents got taken out because they didn't adapt. Toys R Us took them out a generation ago. And so what happens in business is 100% of the time there's going to be a disruption. 100% of the time there's going to be change. And if you are deeply in debt in your business, just like in your personal life, you don't have the ability to be nimble, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and go with the change. You can't move when the market moves because you're paying a stupid bank because you stupidly signed up for so much you can't breathe in debt payments. But if you can move when a disruption comes along, the disruption can actually become the biggest blessing to your business instead of a threat to your business. I'll give you a great example of that. In the 1920s, we used to have, I wasn't here, but we Americans had little boxes in our kitchen that were little insulated boxes to hold a big cube of ice called ice boxes, because there wasn't a refrigerator in your kitchen yet. And companies would deliver those blocks of ice with big tongs, and those blocks of ice would keep your food cool in your kitchen. Or you used a cellar. Frigidaire, a division of General Motors, invented a thing called Freon, and refrigeration was born. Now everybody had refrigerators in their living room, or in their kitchens. And they didn't need ice anymore. You know what the ice houses did? A bunch of them went out of business. You know what one of them in Texas did? They started selling eggs and bacon and other goodies out of their store. The store was called 7-Eleven. They adjusted to the disruption. This is the Dave Ramsey Show.